So starting things off like we always do, like to go over the individual team stats. And before I do that, the storylines around this game are pretty obvious. Obviously, the most important thing is just the fact that this is the playoffs. This is win and go home. This is, then beyond that, Tyreek Hill, his return to Arrowhead. We got to play them earlier this year, but it being in Germany, two teams that don't feel great about each other, about where they stand. The Chiefs, they've had so many issues on offense recently, kind of limped over the finish line to win that division in the first place. And then with Miami Dolphins, you had the division won. You fumble it away with losing, what was it, three out of the last 5 games like we did. So both teams don't feel great about winning the Super Bowl, especially if you're the Dolphins. If you win, you then have to go over to Baltimore. In one way or another, likelihood is the Super Bowl runs through Baltimore. So whether that's the Chiefs or the Dolphins, neither team particularly feels great going into this game. We'll take a look first at the offensive rankings of the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's significantly worse than it usually is. And the most glaring thing is that they've struggled to find reliable work in the passing game. They're currently 15th in the NFL in points scored. Which is just something completely you never thought you'd ever hear from a Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid led Kansas City Chiefs offense. And they're 9th in yards. The passing numbers on paper still look good, but it's mostly been issues with the passing game in situations. It's been Kadarius Toney lining up offsides. It's been MVS dropping passes and multiple other
Kadarius Toney dropping passes.
Yeah, multiple other Chiefs.
Travis Kelce dropping passes.
Yeah,
that's something you never thought you'd hear this year. But yeah, Travis Kelce dropping passes has been a real issue. Joshua asked, do you think the Dolphins have anyone who can stick with Travis Kelce? I believe Ramsey has covered him and had success covering him before.
We'll get that a little bit after this about the specific matchups.
Yeah, we'll go to the stats.
Like how we're going to attack Mahomes and whatnot, stuff like that. So the passing numbers still look good. They're 6th in the NFL in passing numbers. They pass the ball the second most times in the NFL, so the efficiency isn't quite there, and they have the 8th most passing touchdowns. Their rushing attack has gotten better, but it's never quite what the Chiefs want to do. They are currently 19th in the NFL in rushing yards. You go all the way down beyond that to the red zone stats, and it's solid. They get to the red zone the 7th most times in the NFL. They have the 9th most rushing touchdowns. They're 17th in red zone touchdown percentage, so that kind of makes sense when you look at this team. They can get to the red zone pretty well, but they're coming away with field goals more than touchdowns than you would like. And to win in Kansas City, we have to hold them to field goals. That bend don't break. We have to see that be there.
100%.
With this
in order to do that, so I think a major reason is because Travis Kelce hasn't been as much of a red zone threat this year.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to make sure that we keep him shut down. I think, they had a week off of actual games. I'm pretty sure him and Mahomes went back to the drawing board and, we're like, hey, we need to get on the same page. We need to be better. So I do think that that's going to be an emphasis for the Chiefs. So I think that needs to be an emphasis for the Dolphins. I believe their leading touchdown receiver is Rashee Rice, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to make sure that we're on him as well. A lot of his are run after catch, though, like little bubble screens, and then he runs it in.
Yeah,
he's
what was this,
very shifty.
This was like the first time in 6 or 7 years that Travis Kelce had a below 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, well, he had an opportunity. He had 7 straight, so it's the first time in 8 years.
Yeah.
But he had an opportunity to go over 1,000. I think he needed
16.
It was
16 yards, yeah.
Yeah, and they sat him for the last game of the season.
They saw Sam Laporta's knee go, and they're like, all right, let's not do that.
Even though they played at the same time? I'm pretty sure the Lions played at 4.
No, the Lions played at 1 o'clock.
Never mind. I apologize.
Kelce was only 5.
So that's probably exactly why they sat him then.
Yeah, you see another team's tight end go down. And then the rest of the offensive statistical stats, they allow the second least amount of sacks, but they do have the 7th most turnovers in the NFL. I read that right. Because last week I misread a stat. I'm sorry. I misread the sacks for the Buffalo Bills. Sue me. They've given up the second fewest sacks, but they have found the turnovers pile up a little bit this year. I think Patrick Mahomes is recently.
Yeah, I mean, they held us to 2 touchdowns in the last matchup that we
Yes.
had. So, ironically enough, that was the 2 touchdowns were the last 2 scores of that game. And remember, we were in the red zone. I don't know how many times we were in the red zone, but I remember fumble 6 by
Yes.
by
Tyreek.
Hill. A lot of Dolphins fans were unhappy with the whistle not being blown on that. I think it just is what it is.
I agree.
Um,
Wow. What a mature answer by you. I'm surprised that's something you didn't complain about. I actually want to quickly go over what it looked like when we played them earlier this season. It was a 21-14 game. The defense only truly gave up 14 points because of that fumble return for a touchdown. Neither team
sounds just like the Bills game, bro.
Neither team really, well, except the Bills dominated us. The Chiefs definitely by no means dominated us. Neither team felt great. Somebody had to win. They were up 21-0 at half. Didn't score a single point in the second half. It was a tale of two halves, but ultimately they were just able to edge us out. Tua finished with 193 and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes finished with 185 and 2 touchdowns. 93 rushing yards for them. 117 rushing yards for us. It wasn't great. It wasn't the best possible product that you could have been putting out on display. And when going over to Germany and showing the fans football, American football.
I forgot that Achane missed that game.
I forgot that too.
I'm looking at the rushing stats, and
He's not there. Mysteriously, he's not there.
Raheem Mostert had 12 carries for 85 yards, averaging 7.1 per carry, and having a touchdown.
Yeah.
Other leading rushers were Waddle and Tua.
Woohoo! His last game.
Savon Ahmed, that was the game that he got hurt. I mean,
There's no reason. We need a physical running back. All across the board, this team is still very solid. They give up the third fewest touchdowns. They're great on third down, 10th best third down percentage, 7th best fourth down percentage. They don't let teams get to the red zone. They still can, they still give it up every now and then. They have the 11th fewest red zone attempts given up on defense. But overall, second fewest points per game is that's the most important stat, is the fact that they don't give up a lot of points. And this is a team in the Dolphins that we kind of need to start scoring more points. Yeah, it wasn't an ideal game for the Dolphins. It wasn't an ideal game for the Chiefs either. So looking at this matchup, the biggest thing that we're looking at is how are we going to get to Patrick Mahomes? Their offensive line is really good. They allow the second fewest sacks in the league, and we are down to practice squad guys, a guy who was inactive 2 weeks ago, and a guy that we just brought off the street. Like, how much confidence do you have that we're going to be able to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes?
I was muted that entire time. I apologize. I was saying that the interior defensive line is going to have to get the pressure. Sack sealer is going to have to get sacks. Christian Wilkins, Vic Fangio was asked about him potentially moving to the outside a little bit. He played there a little bit with Brian Flores, and Vic Fangio basically said no, that he's having too good of a season on the inside to move him to the outside. Plus, on top of that, you would have Raekwon Davis in there and then have to rotate in Deshaun Hand. Like, it's just not ideal.
And they clearly don't trust, beyond Wilkins and Sealer, like, they haven't given trust to Raekwon Davis.
Raekwon has...
He plays, but they don't trust him.
He's getting more snaps this year than he did last year, believe it or not. Like, it's really weird to say. Yeah, but because last year we ran a lot of 4 defensive ends. This year we're rotating in Raekwon, so he'll come in for Sealer for a couple plays, then come in for Wilkins for a couple plays. But more often than not, it's Wilkins and Sealer, and that's just the way Fangio runs his defense. If you look at the snap counts for everybody, it's the starters on every position getting like 80-90% of the snaps.
Raekwon Davis has 28 total tackles on the season. He has 9 more tackles than Justin Bethel, or Bethel, however you pronounce it.
Bethel.
Yeah, like we're going to have to rely extremely on the interior of this defensive line, and they just so happen to have a Pro Bowl center in Creed Humphrey, so you don't feel great about that. But
yeah,
the entire Chiefs' offensive line is pretty solid. Like, they chose,
it's okay.
They chose to spend their money on the offensive line recently instead of on receivers.
Yeah, because there's always talented receivers in the draft. Like, Theoretically, they did get Rashee Rice, who, like we talked about, is a little bit of a bright spot for him. However, their weakness on the offensive line would probably be Donovan Smith,
who's also going into the game with an injury.
He's been benched multiple times this season for the way. I'm not sure if it's false starts or if it's the way he lines up. But he gets that extra little kick. He lines up super wide when it's a pass play. And he has a pretty big tell when it's a pass play or a run play. He holds a lot too. So he is their biggest weakness on that offensive line. So I think we need to exploit that. But I also think we need to scheme up a lot of stunt plays to get guys open. I wasn't seeing a lot of that in the game against the Bills, given you can't really run that against Josh Allen with the way he moves.
Yeah, he's going to get to the outside before your guys have even crossed the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. So with Josh Allen, you can't really do that. With Lamar, you can't really do that. With Mahomes, though, he can move a little bit, but he's more often than not going to try to stay in the pocket and see his guys through.
He's quicker than all of your defensive linemen and linebackers, but he's just quick enough. Like, he's just faster than Wilkins. He's just faster than whoever on earth we have on the outside, and that is going into the game. That is, I think, our biggest concern on defense, and then on offense. Who's gonna play? Like, Tyreek's gonna play, but is he at 50%? Is he at 40%? Is he at 75%? God knows. Waddle, is he gonna play? Is he at 10%? Is he gonna be at 80%? Raheem Mostert, the offensive line, Teron Armstead's always hurt. Liam Eichenberg's on the injury list right now. There's so many injuries and injuries at key spots. And we looked at that injury list. It's all really good players on both sides of the ball. So what do you think with both the injuries, with the elements, with what we've seen recent, also just with struggles, what do you think this offense is going to look like?
It's going to be who can run the ball better, and that's going to be the epitome of this game, is who can run the ball better. And it's funny because the strength of our offensive line is probably our right side right now with Eichenberg at center, then Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson. Like, every one of those guys are banged up, but they're at least starters. On the other side, you have Robert Jones as our backup left guard. He's okay, but against Chris Jones, you can't have okay. And then at left tackle, you have Teron Armstead. He's been playing, pretty good this season when he's actually in there. Definitely a decline from last year. However, he has played more games, ironically enough. Yeah, so it's gonna come down to the trenches, bro. And it's like I want that to happen because I feel really good about our run game versus their run game, and our run stopping versus their run stopping. Because if we can get to the second level on that defense, we'll be fine. However, it's getting to that second level that's going to be an issue with Chris Jones right there in the middle, probably the best defensive tackle in football.
That second half last week really concerned me for our offense. You come out and you have about 50 yards on 4 drives, had multiple punts, and we had the game in our hands. You go up, 14-7 going into the half. They have that play at the end of the half that could have really demoralized them. And then we got to stop on that first drive. We get the ball, and it just didn't do anything. And the offense scoring 0 points in the second half, when this team needs the offense to score with all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and the defense still played very well. Like, you've been very critical this week of Vic Fangio. I don't think that's really warranted. They allowed 14 points.
I have been saying that. Like, I told you that at the end of, like, look, I know I'm very critical of Vic Fangio and all the yards that we gave up and all the time that they ate up. At the end of the game, they gave up 14 points.
Yeah. Which they did last time we played this Chiefs team also.
Exactly. And that was the first game with Ramsey back, if I'm not – no, it was the Pats game the week before.
Second game.
So that was the second game with Ramsey back. And with Ramsey, we've been a really good defense points-wise. Obviously we're still giving up a lot of yards. But, yeah, the offense concerned me, like you said, in the second half. And Mike McDaniel talked about it. He abandoned the run way too quickly. We stalled on that first drive, and, it is what it is. But then they stalled on their drive, then we got the ball back, and you got it to midfield. Then you had the false start by Teron Armstead, and then you had that catch that wasn't a catch by Tyreek Hill. I really couldn't tell from the Jumbotron. Probably
it was a drop.
It was a drop.
They reviewed it quickly. It was a quick review.
It wasn't that quick.
Relative to how a lot of them are, like, they came back before the commercial break ended and did it.
I didn't.
There's like a minute left on that timer.
I didn't see it, but yeah. So I was very upset with how we didn't rush to the line. Like, that's something that maybe Tua or the offense needs to like keep in mind, like, hey, if it's a close play like that and you're not 100% sure, like Tyreek's a veteran. If you're not 100% sure that you caught that ball, you need to rush to the line. They took their sweet time. They were able to get the challenge flag out.
Yeah.
But then so that turned a second and 1 to a second and 15. Then we had the ineligible man downfield.
Yeah. And the drive just completely.
And it just like completely stalled out. We got a little bit of yards back to them, punt it to them. Then Cameron Good's knee exploded, causing Alec Ingold to trip over him and miss the tackle, causing the Red Sea to part.
There's a lot that went wrong. In
yeah, and then at that point, we felt it in the stadium. The energy just died on the Dolphins side.
It was completely on that other side.
Yeah,
with all those Bills fans.
And before that, the Bills fans were kind of quiet. Like the Bills, relatively, like because at the beginning of the game it was kind of like 50-50. Then it was more Dolphins. Like it was probably 75% Dolphins, 25% Bills fans, and then just completely flipped the script.
The last thing that I want to talk about before we give our predictions is the media's favorite person to talk about seeming like, and that's Tua. It's real. We have seen Tua shrink in a lot of big games and a lot of big opportunities. Starting with 2 years ago with that Tennessee Titans game, was played really poor. Last year, it wasn't really his play. It's more so just his head was messed up. And then this year against good teams, like look at his numbers against good teams, look at his numbers against bad teams. Like it's a real thing. So
he's had opportunities. I believe the Chiefs game he had an opportunity to go down and tie it. The Eagles game, I believe we had an opportunity, and then they ended up scoring again after we stalled on a drive and put it out of reach. He had an opportunity in the Cowboys game. He came through, and then he had an opportunity in the Bills game. And now the interception I can't really put on him, like I said, because that was just a complete timing route. I don't think that play call should have been in there without Tyreek in there, because Claypool had played like 5 snaps that entire game. He does not play. He does not know that route clearly. That's why he doesn't play, because he does not. This is a very timing-based team, and that is something that in the last 2 minutes you can't be throwing those type of throws. You can't just let the ball go and trust that your receiver is going to be there 100% of the time, especially if it's not Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or even Cedric Wilson. Like, the play before that, I thought Tua did a very good job escaping the pressure, but he had Achane right there. Achane, toss it to him, he has the first down. He threw it deep to Tyreek Hill, a jump ball, he threw it a little bit too high, almost picked off. And it's just little decisions like that. Like, you have Achane there. The play call, that's on Mike McDaniel. Don't like that, the play after.
But those plays are the difference between winning and losing games.
100%.
And every single time that we do lose a game, there are those little moments, but ultimately it's a loss. And we haven't seen him perform on the big stage in an important game against a good team, since Alabama, really. Yeah, in Dallas game, he won the game, but he didn't win the game. Like, we have Patrick Mahomes trademark games. We have Josh Allen trademark games where Lamar Jackson, where they put the team on their back and they go down and win. And Lamar Jackson really hasn't had to do it this year, but he has done it. He can do it.
Even C.J. Stroud this year.
C.J. Stroud multiple times. Some of the throws he was making last week off his back foot, like where he had pressure in his face, was absolutely ridiculous.
And that's something. So C.J. Stroud didn't even talk about this. At some point, you just got to be like, fuck it, someone's down there. So, give your guy an opportunity. And that's the thing about the Jags that we're talking about. Like, bro, T-Law fucking sucked because he didn't give the guy an opportunity. Tua, he gives Tyreek an opportunity. That's it. That's literally it. He doesn't give anybody else a real opportunity. It's like, I'm going to throw it here. Either you catch it or, you don't throw it up. Given we don't have guys like Nico Collins that can go up and get a ball.
But he also doesn't have that God-given strength, size, that certain advantages where he could have played like CJ Stroud, if he had the body, he could have played like almost any position on a football field because he's athletic, he's big, he's powerful, he's strong, he can move. Tua has one of the weaker arms. He's undersized, he's underweight. You look on an NFL field, if you take somebody who has never played the sport of football and you walk them out to the football field and you line up every single football player and you say, which one here plays football? Tua is not one of those guys getting picked. He's not an athlete. He relies on the things he does well, which is his accuracy and his ball placement. And when those things are clicking, it's great. And we win a lot of games. But when you have an elite pass rush, when you have an elite secondary, which, you can see with a lot of these games that we've lost against good teams, that is the case. He's getting pressure in his face, or he's having a good secondary on the other end, and that's what we see here with this Kansas City Chiefs game. So
the pressure, I don't think is an issue.
How concerned are you with this Chiefs defense? And do you actually believe that Tua can finally, let me finish. God damn, you've done this whole stream. I wanted to murder you. How do you actually think that Tua is finally going to have a signature game where you can say Tua won us this game? Because we're going to need to with these injuries.
First of all, I thought you were done with your question, then you kept going. Anyways, Tua, I think he can. I think this is going to be the game. As far as the blitzes go, sir, Tua actually is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL against the blitz. So the pass rush, that's not really like...
That's mostly based off of our passing scheme and just getting the ball out quickly rather than him evading defenders.
Well, yeah, that's him, hitting his guys that are open because you play man-to-man against this offense and it's not going to turn out well for you. Steve Spagnuolo actually blitzed a lot against Tua last game, and the thing is that Tua didn't know where the pressure was coming from on those. Steve Spagnuolo is fantastic at disguising blitzes, and that is something that Tua is going to have to go into the film room and be like, okay, I got to be able to identify when a blitz is coming, where the blitz is coming from, and if I don't see it until the play is snapped, I need to know where my contingencies are pre-snap. So I need to know, okay, if this guy rushes me off of Tyreek, he has a safety right there. I can throw towards Tyreek, get it over this guy's head really quickly, make sure that, Tyreek knows if this guy blitzes off of you, that you need to, stay short, catch the pass, and then make a play after the catch.
Yeah, that's good and all, but do you really think, truly in your heart believe, he is capable of having a game where he leads us to victory on his own?
I think that he has had games like that throughout his career. Now,
as a Dolphin?
As a Dolphin.
When? Arizona?
There was the Arizona game. I can even say the Atlanta game that we ended up losing because our defense couldn't make a stop. The Bills game in Miami last year.
No. We won the game. I'm not giving that to him. We won the game. I'm not. He came out and played well, but he didn't carry us to victory.
He came out the second half and was balling out with.
He played very well. He
was balling. Come on.
I think I'd actually give that game more to the defense.
What?
Because it was what we've seen actually this year from this defense, where they gave up a lot of yards, but they held them when they got to the red zone. Because they should have won that game. Just if you look at every single statistical category, they should have won that game. The difference was we scored touchdowns and we stopped them from scoring touchdowns. No, but I'm not taking away from him. He didn't put the team on his back last year when he did that.
Tua has game-winning drives. We've seen him have a couple of, take the lead drives with, time still on the board, and then the defense ends up giving up that last score. We've seen a few times that happens. And I do think that Tua is capable of doing that. I think it's going to come down to the play calling, because you've said this plenty of times in the past. So I'm going to quote you here. You are who your head coach is. And our head coach, he's kind of like a gimmicky guy. Like, we love Mike McDaniel.
He's a little weird.
And he's a little weird. He is also a second-year play caller, and coming from Kyle Shanahan, who does choke a lot of leads in his career, that's who he's learning from. Like, you gotta break the pattern at some point. You need to to let Tua loose. Like we saw in the Brian Flores era, when you let Tua loose, he was able to go and make throws. And I think that was, like I said, with that play call to Chase Claypool on that last play, that play call just like it burns a cell in my brain.
I want to just run the ball on that play. Like, run
I
the ball.
honestly, like,
Clock
because
wasn't
we had a minute 30 something on the clock, and we were already on their side of the field. I felt very good, very, very good about our chances of winning that game at that point.
I had given up at the end of the third quarter. I sat there.
The third quarter, we were still in the lead.
I know. Trust me, I know.
It was 14-7 at the end of the third quarter.
I know. I was watching how the game was going. We were not able to move the ball. They had moved the ball all game long, but they were just not finishing.
I was concerned about they weren't moving the ball in the third quarter either.
Yeah, that was the worst quarter. But
neither team moved the ball in that third quarter, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be who can put a drive together, because neither team put a drive together until that punt return for a touchdown. And then, then we moved the ball to, midfield again. And we never got it past midfield. Anyways, I want the ball to be into his hand and be like, look, you know this playbook. You know your guys. Like, do your thing. Like, if you want suggestions, I got you. But, like, in a 2-minute offense, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, you think that they had their offensive coordinators sitting there you have a designed 2-minute warning or 2-minute offense, but at certain times, you just got to take the reins, and we haven't seen Tua do that just yet, but we haven't seen him allowed to do that just yet. Now that could speak of, You like to dig a little bit more into that than I do.
There is a reason why we don't see Channing Tindall play. There's a reason why we don't see Cam Smith play. There's a reason why we
don't even get me started on Cam.
There's a reason why the Tua isn't allowed to be given the reins.
We can bring in Gage, who is a Broncos Syndicate. He had Vic Fangio. He knows that Vic Fangio very much dislikes.
Bring back in the reins. That's not the point. The point is, I trust the coaching staff. I trust.
You trust the coaching staff a little bit too much.
I do.
They play Eli Apple over Nick Needham.
Got an interception. That was sarcasm. Mostly sarcasm. But no,
Yes.
Hey, well, we scored a touchdown that drive, didn't we?
No.
Oh, well.
We punted it.
Oh well. I trust the coaching staff, and especially it's been 2 different coaching regimes, 2 very different coaching styles that at the end of games, when we need to put together drives, we just can't. We're missing that throw. We're missing that big play. We're missing what we see from the offense when we're in the first and second quarter, or when we're playing the Washington Commanders. We don't see that happen in the fourth quarter when we need a touchdown.
So, like I was saying, in the Brian Flores era, in the last 2 minutes, pretty much when the game was out of reach, they let Tua go. They let him do what he wanted to do.
And also teams are playing playoff defense,
preventative defense. But that's exactly what the Bills were playing too. They were playing preventative defense. Yeah. Let him go and do his thing, because that's what they were playing. We played prevent defense in the end of the second half when the Bills were going, and we ended up stopping them. Let Tua go, because we have the personnel when we get down there to actually score. Like we have a 70-something% red zone conversion rate.
We have
the personnel. Achane, Jeff Wilson, they've been getting the job done. If you get down there with 45 seconds to go, why not run the ball 1 or 2 times?
Yeah, that percentage has gone down a little bit. It's at 65.5%, but it's gotten a little worse, but it's still second in the NFL.
We ended up having to go for it in the red zone against the Ravens a couple of times.
That's the last thing I want to say before we just get into the predictions is just I've seen this team time and time again fall short when the rubber hits the road, whether it's against a good team or whether it's situational football or whenever things are tough. We see this team and we talked about it on the last stream, the toughness about this team. It is something that's worth questioning. Whenever we get to that point where we need to make a play, whenever we need to drive, when we need to stop, when we need to score, whatever it is, time and time again, as a Dolphins fan, we've seen our team let us down. And this is going to be the ultimate test, going to an environment where you have two Super Bowl winning, 2-time winning with a head coach, quarterback, in their house. The weather is crazy. So with that, it's been a pretty elongated preview. Got off topic there a little bit. How do you think the game's going to go?
19-16 Dolphins. 2 touchdowns scored the entire game.
Combined?
Combined.
Okay. I can get behind that as well, and kind of. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I mean, it's the weather. It sucks. And both teams, like second half of the season, particularly with us, and the entire season with the Kansas City Chiefs, like it's been a really good defense out on display for the Kansas City Chiefs. So even if the weather was good, like I'd still have concerns with this Miami Dolphins offense. So with the weather just adding on to that, like I'm really concerned how this offense is going to look.
I actually have a question. Do we know, because I saw someone commented on one of our other videos just now, that there's supposed to be a negative 17-degree wind chill. So what is the wind supposed to look like? Because I may change my prediction based off of the wind and the kicking situation.
Let's assume it's bad. Just across,
all right,
everything's bad.
I'm going to go ahead. Like, if the wind is bad, let's see, is it going to snow? We're looking up Kansas City's. We're looking up the weather in Kansas City right now for Saturday, because I know it's going to be cold, but, like, I don't know the extent.
I think it's not going to snow, but I'm not 100% certain. I'm pretty sure this, like you said earlier, it's got really cold in here. Talking about the snow, it just got really cold in here.
Yeah, AC set to like 67 or some shit.
Yeah. It's cold in my house for sure. Whatever it is, it's going to be rough.
I forgot it.
Whether it is snow or not, it's going to be rough.
Arrowhead Stadium, there we go. So on Saturday, look. So it's not going to snow.
No, I didn't think so.
It 0% chance actually.
Yeah, but everything else is gonna suck.
But it looks like
what's the winds?
It looks like it's gonna be 0 degrees low. Wind. Where's wind?
Like miles per hour. That's mostly what I'm concerned about. Is how quick is that wind gonna be going? Are we looking like 15?
Looking at a consistent 10 mile an hour. With a high of 26.
Yikes. Yeah. So are you adjusting your prediction based on that? What are we doing?
I am.
So?
Yeah, off of the wind alone, I don't think anybody's going to really be wanting to kick it with how much that wind is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that they're going to go for it on a couple of fourth downs, and the other side, both teams are. I'm going to go ahead and go 21-20 Dolphins with a missed extra point by Harrison Butker.
Look, guys.
To lose the game, I might add.
That's wild. That's a wild prediction. Look, guys, I sell myself on being honest and telling you guys exactly what I think. And the one time
I'm gonna step away.
The one time I was not honest was for the Baltimore Ravens prediction. And I sat here and said that I thought the Baltimore Ravens were going to win, as Donovan is about to eat some food or throw something at me. I can't tell which. Yeah, he's about to throw something at me. Hey, dude, that's hard. All right, don't throw that at me. So he's got a Hershey kiss. And he's also like point blank range now. Whatever that is. Hershey nugget. Look, I lied when I said that we were going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. You already know where I'm going with this. I don't even know why you're bothering. Look, I don't think we're winning. Yeah. I don't think we're winning. I'm sorry. This team has really let me down. Like, we had a really high in the beginning of the season, and losing to Tennessee was like a real low point, getting destroyed by the Ravens, and then you still held your own destiny. That last game of the season, could have won the division, could have had a home playoff game, could have had 70-degree weather instead of 0-degree weather. Kansas City Chiefs, yes, they have their questions. This offense is not the same. This defense, though, is also not the same. And the offense right now is where I have more concerns about this Miami Dolphins team, which is something that I never thought I would say this season. I think it's going to be a brutal game. I think there's going to be like you said, missed extra points, missed field goals. I think there's going to be drop passes by the Chiefs. Either there's going to be missed passes by Tua because the timing's off, whether it's because of weather, whether it's because of injuries. And I think that's going to lead to an ugly 17-13 with the Kansas City Chiefs winning.